Welcome back to Inbox. On this episode, we talk roller coasters and safety. Joining me now is Jordan May, the Assistant Regional Representative for ACE in Canada.
I am the Assistant Regional Representative, one of the Assistant Regional Representatives for ACE, the American Coaster Enthusiasts in Canada. We are the world's largest organization for roller coaster fans and enthusiasts to connect, travel, and see amusement parks together. So our purpose is twofold. First of all, to promote and foster the development of the industry. And secondly, we run events where our members can visit a park, get to ride rides without waiting in line after the park is closed.
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. All sorts of tours, behind-the-scenes experiences, that sort of thing.
What kind of tours have you gone on?
We get all sorts of backstage experiences, such as roller coaster walkbacks, walking through indoor attractions with the lights on, getting to see the mechanical and maintenance areas of a park, and allowing our members to better understand how things are done.
How long have you been enthused by roller coasters?
I caught the bug at age 3, I think. Back in
that's very early.
1999, I rode Canada's Wonderland's Ghoster Coaster, and I was hooked instantly.
And what's the process been from age 3 to where you are now?
Well, I started riding and traveling at that age, and then around age 9, I went to my first trade show, and then I took on this role about 6 years ago.
So were you one of those little kids who knew everything about the roller coasters?
Oh, absolutely,
knew all the details? Were people impressed when you're this little boy talking about all these roller coasters in such detail?
Well, I drove my parents up the wall, but it was always a weird thing in school, you know, the kids thinking I was an alien,
An alien.
what have you, but it's always been my lifelong passion, so.
But it wasn't just riding roller coasters for you, it was the engineering aspects as well that you were very interested in.
Oh, of course, and the technology and the things that have been accomplished in this industry are incredible to me.
Like what?
Well, over the years, several of the companies have been incorporating technology from many other industries, trying to make rides more and more advanced and change the sensations that we can give riders. The envelope is constantly being pushed, and it will continue to be pushed well into the future.
How so? How do you think? Because there's Leviathan, there's all of these other new coasters.
Well, there are
that
many
faster.
Well, we've reached a point where it's not necessarily just about faster and higher. There are many other things that are being introduced, such as wood and steel hybrid rides.
What are those?
Well, there are new technologies emerging that can allow parks to put steel track onto a wood structure, or to allow wooden roller coasters to go upside down and do things that would not have normally been possible with a wood structure in the past.
How are these being done?
Well, it's several different companies in the wooden coaster market who are pushing the envelope. From barrel rolls with a wooden track to full-on loops and inverted stalls. It's new track bending technologies and new engineering features that are allowing this sort of thing to happen.
What has the process been between age 3 to present?
Well, obviously, even in the past 20 years, computer engineering has become a huge part of the industry and has allowed so many more advanced structures to be built. And similarly, manufacturing techniques have improved, which gives more precise components for the rides, makes them smoother, makes them able to go faster without shaking, without delivering a rough ride. And that, of course, is translated to more rideable and more extreme rides for our guests.
So you mentioned steel on wood. What were some of the other options? So roller coaster innovations, new things.
So a new thing that's popped up a lot lately is the fourth dimension roller coaster, where we have vehicles that are capable of flipping independently of the track, whether that's controlled via the ride or just free spinning through flips as the ride passes through the track. It's a unique experience for the guests, and also one that's very re-rideable, because in a free spinning idiom, the ride will be completely different every single time, and you never know exactly what you're going to get.
How about some others?
Well, just this year, we've seen the introduction of spinning roller coasters that are capable of going upside down, spinning horizontally on the track, not free-flipping like a
okay.
fourth
So,
dimension ride.
because I've heard of loop-de-loops, but I haven't heard of going sideways on the track.
Yeah. So for several years now, several manufacturers have been doing rides that are capable of spinning horizontally against the track. And this, much like the fourth dimension roller coasters, are a very re-rideable experience because you get a completely different experience every single time.
Speaking of having a different experience all the time, are ride warriors looking for something like this? To not have the same ride every single time that they go to that amusement park or go on that ride?
Well, it's certainly a way to encourage re-rideability, but then again, so is picking a different seat, because of course, the longer your vehicle is, the more variance you're going to have across the seats.
Let's speak about variants. What are the different variances between the front, the middle, the back?
Well, it depends on the length of your train too, but often in the back seat, as a vehicle is accelerating down a hill, you'll get kind of a moment of airtime as the back is pulled by the downhill accelerating vehicle through that hill. Okay.
Are there different types of wheel setups? And
So-
how is a vehicle able to go on its side?
So most roller coasters today are locked securely around the rails. This is done with 3 sets of wheels. On top of the rails, you have what we call road wheels or running wheels. To the side of the rails, preventing the vehicle from shifting side to side, you have guide wheels. And underneath the vehicle, preventing it from moving up and securely locking it around the track, you have what we call upstops.
What are upstops?
Well, it's a wheel setup much like the road wheels or the guide wheels, just on the bottom underneath the rails, that when a vehicle travels, say, over a hill or upside down, keeps it locked securely on the track.
When were these
all
made?
directions. So, in the beginning, of course, roller coasters just rode in a track, and they were not affixed to it, and that generally affected what we were able to do. And then, as we progressed through the 20th century, upstop pads were invented, which, of course, were just preventing the roller coaster from traveling off the track, and then those became full-on wheels to allow a full range of motion at any angle and through any inversion.
Now, there's some roller coasters I see when I go to amusement parks. It looks like it's just gliding on a single rail, and it doesn't look too safe.
Well, single rail roller coasters are becoming a more prevalent thing in our in the industry, but they work very similar in a very similar way to any other roller coaster. The single rail extends on both sides to a place where you can have wheels on top, on the side, and underneath, keeping the roller coaster securely fastened in all angles onto the track.
Can the operators control the ride speed?
Generally, no. Most traditional roller coasters have what we call a lift hill, where the vehicle attaches to either a lift chain or a lift cable, is towed to the top of a really big hill, and gravity does the rest of the work.
So the engineer has really no part in how fast it goes, or
Well, obviously, they designed the ride given the force of gravity and the speed that the vehicle will be traveling through the rest of the course.
But there's
There's
no other
also a
pull?
thing called trim brakes that we can use to trim off some of the speed of a vehicle if it's traveling too fast through a course. Some roller coasters will accelerate to their top speed without the use of a lift hill and then coast through the rest of their course by gravity and the inertia from that motion. This is what we call a launch. It's generally done via magnets, hydraulics, compressed air, flywheels, or some other means of a surge of power.
Let's talk about that. Magnets or hydraulics?
Well, for a hydraulic launch, it's a technology very similar to the steam catapults that were developed for aircraft carriers to accelerate the planes to their top speed so they could take off in such a short span of time. So we have what is called generally a catch car, which connects to the ride vehicle. And this catch car is connected via cable to a nitrogen launch engine. And this nitrogen launch engine uses gas piston accumulators, which are basically a cylinder with compressed gas on one side, and they fill up with oil, hydraulic oil, compressing the gas, and when that gas is allowed to expand, the oil is forced out so fast that it can drive the turbine really quick and launch the train.
Now, is this done every single time the ride goes on its bout?
Yeah, a typical hydraulic launch engine, like the ones you might see in Sandusky or New Jersey, can be reset and used every 45 seconds.
And would that mean that the ride would only have to have one cart going at a single time, or could it have multiple carts on the track?
You can run multiple vehicles on the same track. Obviously, a block system is used to prevent any train from entering the same area of track where another train already is. So for instance, On a launched coaster, you might wait till one train has cleared the course before the next train is allowed to advance to launch position, just to ensure that they can never be in the same place at the same time.
How often are trains usually on the same tracks? Does a track need to be a certain length for that to work?
Not necessarily, no. A case where roller coasters will run multiple trains is generally used for high capacity, putting a lot of riders through an attraction in a single hour, just to make sure there are enough seats and trains are leaving frequently enough to ensure the line isn't too long.
Why are height requirements on some rides put in place?
So the use of height requirements is for two reasons. First of all, we want to be able to safely restrain the rider, of course, in whatever restraint device is used on the ride. And secondly, body development. As the rider grows older, we want to ensure that the forces of the ride are going to be comfortable for somebody of a certain age and somebody who is reached a certain height. Obviously, would they be able to withstand it? Of course, but we want to make sure that the G-forces are comfortable for the rider.
Do precautions such as keep your limbs inside the vehicle or no standing actually help the rider's safety, or are these unlikely scenarios?
Parks put a lot of thought into developing their rider requirements and safety information, and circumventing them is just generally going against what is reasonable precautions for riding. Obviously, in many cases, the restraint is going to stop you from standing up, but it's still best that the rider remains in a comfortable seated position in the correct riding position. Another one we see a lot is loose item policies and the use of cell phones on rides, which, while maybe not a danger to the rider holding the cell phone, if they were to drop it, it could become a projectile for guests on the ground. So it's very important that guests listen to the safety information and follow all instructions given by the operators, because they are very well thought out and there's a reason behind all of them.
Have cell phones become projectiles in the past?
I can't comment as to specific incidents, but it's very common to see people's smashed phones all under the ground underneath a roller coaster, and even if there's no chance of hitting anyone, you still don't want to smash your phone.
What can cause a roller coaster to malfunction?
Well, most of the time when we see a roller coaster stopped or experiencing downtime, it's not a malfunction or a breakdown at all. Roller coaster safety systems are designed to bring the ride to the safest possible controlled stop in the event that they should even think that something could be wrong, because it's always better to stop and check, no matter how many times you have to do that, than for something to actually be wrong. So when rides experience downtime, it's generally nothing at all. It's a safety stop, and it's an indication of the safety system working correctly, as it should.
Have there been any types of incidences in the past with roller coaster malfunctions that have helped innovate roller coasters today from a safety aspect?
Well, parks are always looking to make sure guests get the safest possible experience when visiting to ride rides. And we always want to learn from safety or from any sort of problem that people have had with a ride, because it's not always just a question of safety. You obviously want the rides to be low maintenance. You want them to work well and perform when expected. So operators and manufacturers alike are always innovating to make sure that's the case, because there's no real end to what can be improved and innovated to make roller coasters even better.
How long can it take from concept to execution to make a roller coaster?
Well, depending if the roller coaster is unique, a custom designed ride for a specific part, or a stock model, it can vary anywhere from months to years of advanced planning. Design, concept, marketing, construction, and opening, it can be years or even months.
How do coasters at theme parks compare to pop-up coasters or traveling roller coasters?
Well, generally, a very big thing to consider with traveling rides is what you can feasibly move from place to place, and what sort of area you're feasibly going to have to set up such a ride. So that's why we generally won't see big or large or fast roller coasters traveling on the fair circuit.
Expand on that a little bit. What kind of roller coasters would you typically see, or what kind of requirements? Are there any requirements regarding these roller coasters that are pop-up or traveling?
Oh, of course. The TSSA, which oversees amusement ride safety in Ontario, of course holds all traveling rides, portable or trailer mounted, to the same high standard to which they work with theme parks to achieve. Generally, with traveling roller coasters, the limit is size, because there's only so much that can be reasonably and economically moved, set up, and then moved again. So generally, compact rides that can be built on a small area that have a lot of action in a small amount of space are what you're going to see in that market.
What would you say is the #1 country for roller coasters in the entire world? That's a bit of a hard question.
You're going to make me choose. Well, I don't know that there is a #1 country. I mean, every market in the world has its own unique flavor. Here in North America, between America and Canada, we have a diverse and talented group of theme park operators from a variety of companies who have...
What's the taste in Canada?
Canada? Well, here in Canada, we have a number of different parks who've done great things. Of course, Canada's Wonderland, having built the spectacular Leviathan and Behemoth before that. All the way to Quebec City with La Ronde and PNE out west, Callaway Park. We have lots of excellent operators in this country who've done great things for their guests.
How about in the United States?
Well, in America, you generally see a lot of the same theme park operators, as well as many talented independent parks across the country. The big players always give their best, and the independent parks are generally just a fantastic, fantastic environment. We live in a great time to be riding roller coasters and seeing things in this industry. There's lots of cool new products coming out and exciting new events across.
What countries have you traveled to, or what was one of the most interesting places that you've traveled to riding roller coasters?
Again, you're going to make me choose. Well, I have lots of favorite destinations for amusement parks. Of course, there are several really famous markets in this industry, like Central Florida, where you have Orlando and all of the parks that go with that. Of course, there's a similarly competitive market in the Los Angeles area, where almost every major player has a property there. But there are some very unique destinations across the country, too. Silverwood in Idaho is one of those places that's really, really far from everything else, and is just a beautiful little park. Any of Cedar Fair's excellent properties, all sisters of Canada's Wonderland across the country. Any of Six Flags properties, similarly. All the major players deliver a great experience, as do the smaller chains. Hirsch and Family Entertainment with their properties in Branson, Missouri, Silver Dollar City, and Pigeon Forge, Dollywood. Both just beautiful, beautiful parks and great places to visit.
Speaking of different tastes and different flavors of roller coasters, how would you say that the water rides in regards to engineering compare to the dry rides?
So one of the biggest challenges with water parks and water slides is always going to be capacity, because water slides generally don't take a lot of people at once. So there are lots of new technologies coming through in the industry to help with that, and new and exciting water attractions, such as the water coaster, which is generally water slides that can travel up hills as well as downhills, be that by water jets propelling the raft, or even in modern times by linear induction motors using magnetic launch technologies to accelerate water slides uphill. And these new water slides can accommodate great numbers of people that were unheard of before in the industry. Another huge trend in water parks is the launch capsule technology. Trapdoor launches into water slides that we've seen from many manufacturers in many interesting styles.
Is there any specific types of malfunctions in the past that have been improved?
We've come a long way from the early days of roller coasters as far as safety features that have been implemented. Not just keeping the roller coaster on the track, but braking technology, but restraint technology, safeties for lift systems, for launch systems, just the maximum amount of fail-safes to cover every possible eventuality. And the industry will continue to innovate to make sure those safeties are in place.
What do you believe drives people to visit amusement parks or ride rides or ride roller coasters? What drives you?
Well, I think there's nothing like the experience of the seemingly uncontrolled flight through the sky that is, of course, perfectly controlled and repeatable and accessible to the public. There's no extreme thrill that is accessible in such an easy way and such a safe way and such an enjoyable way for the whole family.
How did you get involved with ACE?
So I came to ACE actually at the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions trade show in Florida. I stopped by, this organization has a booth there every single year, and I stopped by the booth and I was just enamored to find out there were other people like me. And I wanted to jump in and volunteer and do whatever I could to be a part of this and to deliver that same awesome amusement park experience to our members that I experienced when I first joined ACE. Because going to these sort of events was a dream come true for me. So to be able to do that for other members now is just wonderful.
How old were you when you started with ACE?
I came to ACE a decade ago, so I was 10.
Wow.
And
they let you join that young?
yeah. We have members of all ages who come to our events. We make sure there's always something for the whole family because this is often something that people do as a family.
And what age did you become a representative?
That was 6 years ago, so I was 14 when I became an ACE representative, along with the rest of our talented team here in Canada, who have been awesome to work with this whole time.
Well, you really know your stuff, and thank you so much, Jordan, for coming on, and we'll see you next episode.
#1 multicultural channel. This is TAG TV.